One emperor raped a senator's wife in front of the entire court, just to watch him break. In the shadow of Rome's marble grandeur, where emperors were worshipped as gods, a darker truth festered. Power didn't just corrupt, it unveiled monstrous desires. Behind palace doors, sex became a weapon, humiliating rivals, desecrating traditions, and rewriting Rome's moral code. These were no mere indulgences, but staged horrors in a theatre of cruelty. From incestuous liaisons to public spectacles of degradation. The imperial bedroom became Rome's most terrifying seat of power. If you're ready to walk through history's darkest corridors, don't forget to like, subscribe, or share your thoughts below. In the heart of ancient Rome, where conquests carved an empire and marble monuments proclaimed eternal glory, power was not confined to battlefields or senate chambers. It seeped into the most intimate recesses of life, the imperial bedroom. Here, emperors like Caligula, Tiberius, Elagabalus, Nero, and Messalina transformed sexuality into a tool of control, a public declaration of their untouchable authority. Roman historians, from Suetonius to Tacitus, chronicled these acts not as scandal, but as revelations of character, proof that a ruler's private excesses foretold public tyranny. In a society where penetration signified dominance and submission spelled disgrace, the emperor's desires shaped politics, religion, and the very soul of Rome. A journey into this shadowed world reveals not just moral decay, but a calculated system where sexuality and statecraft entwined. Yet this is only the beginning of a darker tale. In the spring of 37 AD, Rome hailed Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, known to history as Caligula, as its savior. A young emperor, barely 25, he was the darling of the masses, revered by the Senate and guarded by the Praetorian elite. Yet within 4 years, his name would become synonymous with depravity, his reign a grotesque pageant of power. Caligula's descent began not in the Forum, but in the shadowed halls of the imperial palace, where he turned intimacy into a weapon. Defying Roman law and custom, he openly conducted affairs with his 3 sisters, Agrippina, Drusilla, and Livilla. These were no clandestine liaisons. Caligula flaunted them, seating his sisters in places of honor at lavish banquets, positions reserved for an empress. To Rome's elite, this was a chilling proclamation. Even familial bonds bowed to imperial will. When Drusilla died in 38 AD, Caligula's grief twisted into something far darker. He declared her a goddess, decreeing that laughter, bathing, or dining with family during the empire's mourning was a capital offense. But his true monument to power was the transformation of the imperial palace into a grotesque theatre, a so-called palace of pleasure. Here, the wives and daughters of Rome's senators were compelled to serve as prostitutes, their humiliation performed before their powerless husbands. Caligula charged admission to these spectacles, turning shame into a perverse revenue stream. This was no mere indulgence, it was a calculated assault on the dignity of Rome's elite, a reminder that no one, not even the mightiest senator, could shield their kin from the emperor's desires. Even the tale of Caligula, appointing his horse, Incitatus, as consul, whether truth or legend, carried a venomous subtext. It suggested that a beast held more worth than Rome's noblest men, whose wives the emperor claimed as his own. By 41 AD, the Praetorian Guard, sickened by his excesses, struck him down in a bloodied corridor. Yet Caligula's brief reign was but a prelude to the horrors that other emperors would unleash. On the cragged cliffs of Capri, far from Rome's prying eyes, Tiberius Claudius Nero, emperor from 14 to 37 AD, sought refuge in his final years. Yet this was no serene retirement. The island became a stage for a realm of depravity that would sear itself into Rome's collective memory. Tiberius, once a stoic general, transformed his secluded villa into a labyrinth of vice where the boundaries of humanity dissolved. Historian Suetonius recounts the horrors with clinical precision. Elaborate swimming pools, carved into the villa's heart, served not for leisure, but for grotesque rituals. Here, attendants, often coerced, were forced into intimate acts, dubbed Tiberius's little fishes, to sate the emperor's whims in the flickering torchlight of private baths. Beyond the pools, hidden chambers adorned with explicit frescoes bore witness to unspeakable indulgences. Archaeological excavations at Villa Jovis corroborate these accounts, revealing opulent bathing complexes and isolated rooms accessible only by treacherous mountain paths, ensuring absolute secrecy. Tiberius's victims, drawn from Rome's prominent families, were not chosen at random. Their humiliation was a calculated act of statecraft, a leash to silence potential rivals. A senator whose kin suffered in Capri's shadows would think twice before plotting rebellion. The emperor's depravity was thus a shield, cloaking his political survival in the guise of personal vice. For over 2 decades, Rome endured Tiberius's tyranny, its people whispering of the horrors veiled by Capri's azure seas. When death claimed him in 37 AD, the empire exhaled in relief, believing the worst had passed. Crowds rejoiced, tearing down his statues, unaware that his successor, Caligula, would cast an even darker shadow. Yet Tiberius's legacy lingered, a testament to how far an emperor might descend when power knew no bounds. Capri's cliffs had borne witness to a chilling truth. The imperial will could twist even the most sacred human bonds into instruments of terror. But Rome's descent into moral abyss was far from complete. In 218 AD, a boy of 14 ascended Rome's throne. His name, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus Augustus, known to history as Elagabalus. His reign, brief yet incendiary, shattered the empire's deepest convictions about gender, sexuality, and imperial dignity. Clad in silken robes, adorned with coal and jewels, Elagabalus rejected the martial masculinity Rome exalted, preferring feminine titles and the guise of a woman. To a society where dominance defined status, this was not merely eccentricity, it was heresy. Contemporary chronicler Cassius Dio records the emperor's audacious plea. He offered vast fortunes to any physician who could grant him female genitalia, a desire that scandalized even Rome's cosmopolitan elite. Elagabalus's defiance extended to the sacred. He wed a Vestal virgin, Aquilia Severa, desecrating a tradition that held Rome's divine favor depended on their chastity. Within the imperial palace, he staged performances of breathtaking audacity, dressing as a courtesan and soliciting senators in its gilded corridors, debasing the throne itself. His bond with Hierocles, a chariot driver he called husband, further inflamed Rome's outrage. Elagabalus granted Hierocles honors reserved for empresses, assuming a submissive role that upended the empire's patriarchal order. To senators, this was an existential threat. An emperor who willingly surrendered dominance undermined the very foundation of Roman power. His religious fervor deepened the chaos. Importing the Syrian sun god Elagabal to Rome, the emperor presided over rituals as a female priest, blending sexual acts with divine worship in spectacles that left audiences aghast. By 222 AD, the The Praetorian Guard, unable to tolerate such subversion, struck him down, his body cast into the Tiber. Elagabalus's reign, though fleeting, exposed a fracture in Rome's rigid hierarchy, daring to challenge norms that bound emperor and empire alike. Yet the city's appetite for spectacle would find a new master, one who would turn depravity into public theatre. In 54 AD, Nero, Claudius, Caesar, Augustus, Germanicus ascended Rome's throne, a youth of 17 whose reign would become a grotesque masquerade. Unlike his predecessors, who cloaked their vices within palace walls, Nero flung open the curtains, turning Rome's theatres into stages for imperial debauchery. His most infamous act was his marriage to Sporus, a young freedman whom he ordered castrated, then wed in a public ceremony, adorned with veils and dowry. Nero paraded Sporus as his empress, caressing him before crowds at banquets and plays, a spectacle that melded fascination with revulsion. Yet with Pythagoras, another freedman, Nero reversed roles, submitting to him in mock weddings staged for Rome's elite, defying the empire's rigid codes of dominance. Nero's stages were not mere venues for indulgence. They were arenas of power. Draped in costumes, now a goddess, now a nymph, he performed sexual acts with fellow players, blurring art and obscenity. Senators, compelled to applaud under threat of death, watched their emperor dismantle Roman dignity, their forced cheers a testament to his dominion. Whispers of incest with his mother, Agrippina the Younger, swirled through the city, fueled by historians like Tacitus and Suetonius. Whether truth or slander, Nero's murder of Agrippina in 59 AD silenced the rumors, but not the unease they sowed. These spectacles served a chilling purpose. By compelling Rome's noblest to witness his degradation, Nero asserted that no sphere of life, public or private, escaped his grasp. The Senate, once a bastion of authority, found itself reduced to a captive audience, clapping for an emperor who mocked their honor. By 68 AD, rebellion and suicide ended Nero's reign, his death mourned by some, cursed by others. Yet his legacy of theatrical excess lingered, a grim reminder of how far imperial power could twist the soul of Rome. But one woman's audacity would soon rival even Nero's infamy. Valeria Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius, wielded imperial power with a brazenness that stunned even Rome's jaded aristocracy. Not an emperor, yet no less commanding, she turned desire into a tool of dominion. Her escapades etched into history by Pliny the Elder's unsparing pen. In a public brothel, under the alias Lysiska, and cloaked in a blonde wig, Messalina competed with Rome's most renowned courtesan Sylla to satisfy more men in a single night. The tally, 25 to Sylla's 23, crowned Messalina victorious, her triumph not in coin, but in the thrill of anonymity and power. Night after night, she slipped from the palace to Rome's underbelly, serving men unaware they lay with an empress. Yet Messalina's appetites were not merely carnal. Her liaisons with senators, generals, and foreign dignitaries wove a web of compromise, each lover a pawn in her network of influence. Seduction became statecraft, gathering secrets to fortify her position. Her audacity culminated in a fatal act of hubris. In 48 AD, while still wed to Claudius, she staged a bigamous marriage to her lover Gaius Silius, complete with sacred rites, as if to supplant the emperor himself. This was no mere infidelity, it was treason. When Claudius learned of the ceremony, he ordered her execution. Messalina met her end in the gardens where she had indulged her desires, her blood staining the earth of her own making. Her fall marked the close of a chapter of unparalleled audacity, but Rome's descent into moral shadow was far from over. In the twilight of Rome's grandeur, the imperial bedroom stood not as a sanctuary, but as a crucible where power forged its darkest expressions. From Caligula's palace of shame to Tiberius's island of horrors, from Elagabalus's defiance to Nero's theatrical depravity and Messalina's audacious ambition, these emperors and empresses wielded sexuality as a scepter of domination. Their acts, chronicled by historians like Suetonius and Tacitus, were not mere vices, but calculated rituals that bound Rome's elite in chains of humiliation. In a world where dominance defined status, the emperor's desires reshaped politics, defiled sacred traditions, and scarred the empire's soul. The legacy of their excesses whispers a timeless truth. Power, unchecked, consumes both ruler and realm, turning human bonds into instruments of terror. Rome's fall carried these shadows forward, their echoes lingering in the courts of later empires. For those who seek to pierce history's veil, consider liking, subscribing, or sharing reflections below to explore further tales of humanity's darkest hours. The past, ever unyielding, holds yet more secrets to unveil.